Hi,
Yes,
I'm Dwi here. How are you?
very well.
Okay, that's it. Yeah, I should open the camera. Good morning from Jakarta here.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen from Indonesia, and good morning and good evening for all of you from across the globe. Welcome to Digit 20's side event, seminar on opportunities and challenges in green Sukuk. How are you today? I hope you are in a very good condition amidst this predicament. My name is Nopri. I'm from the Ministry of Finance of the Republic of Indonesia, and I'm delighted to serve you as your MC for this event. This virtual seminar is one of the G20 Finance Trackside events held by Indonesian government in cooperation with Her Majesty's Treasury, UK's Islamic Finance Council, and Islamic Development Bank. The objective of this event is to introduce and explore alternatives financing, that is Sukuk, which I believe will be explained later by the speakers during discussion. Thus, I hope this event can reach its objective to serve as a platform to exchange ideas, knowledge, best practices, and lessons learned. I believe that we can get many significant takeaways from this event so that we can hopefully recover together, recover stronger. And now, to officially commence today's seminar, I'd like to cordially invite Ibu Dwi Irianti, Director for Islamic Finance, Ministry of Finance of the Republic of Indonesia. Ibu Dwi Irianti, you may have the screen. Ibu Dwi, could you please unmute yourself? It's still muted. Thank you. We still cannot hear you. Hi, Ibu.
Hi, do you
Okay,
hear me?
now we can hear you, yeah. Please,
Okay,
Ibu.
everyone can hear me then. Okay.
Ibu Dwi, the time is yours, Ibu.
Okay, thank you very much. Distinguished speakers, participants, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning and good afternoon from Jakarta to all of you. It's an honor for me to be here today to deliver a keynote address on this prestigious event that brings together government institutions, multilateral development partners, private sectors, and academics to promote the discuss opportunity and challenge in green Sukuk. First of all, I would like to greet all of you prominent speakers and all participants of the webinar. Also, I would like to extend my appreciation to this forum and its forum partners for organizing and inviting me to this event. As today's event has been designed to discuss opportunities and challenges in green Sukuk, I would like to emphasize Indonesia's commitment and what the government has done to combat climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia is highly committed in combating climate change. The country is highly vulnerable to adverse impact of climate change and understand that it should respond effectively and in a systematic way. We have pledged our strong commitment to save the economy to a low carbon and climate resilience development path that has been integrated into the development policy, strategies, and programs. As a responsible member of the global community, Indonesia ratified Paris Agreement in 2016 and submitted its national determinant contributions. In the NDC document, Indonesia has committed to reducing greenhouse gas emissions by up to 29% with its own resources, or up to 41% with international support in 2030. At the national level, Indonesia has set the institutional framework and strategies to combat climate change through the National Action Plan on Climate Mitigation, Climate Adaptation, and Biodiversity. These green initiatives are crucial to support Indonesia's commitment to combat climate change and achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. Ladies and gentlemen, it is undeniable that climate change actions are costly. The latest estimation presented in the second biennial update report document stated that around 3,461 trillion IDR, or equivalent to 247.2 billion US dollar, is required to meet the unconditional emissions reduction target. The government spending on climate change has been thus far recorded at total of 373.5 trillion IDR, or equivalent to 26.68 US dollar billion in the period of 2016 to 2019. However, this amount can only meet climate mitigation financing needs of 34% of the total funding needed to achieve the NDC target. By considering the current trend, a significant budget gap to achieve the target set in the NDC can be expected. This is why the government has been thinking innovatively in putting the right enabling policy instruments in the system to fill in the financing gap. In this endeavor, the Ministry of Finance has developed a budget-taking mechanism to mainstream the national budget that correlates with climate change impacts. It is performance-based budgeting system and is embedded into the national budgeting system. The system enables government institutions to identify and assess their expenditures related to climate mitigation actions. The result of the budget taking has enabled the government to better map the financing needs across sectors requiring green finance. With the rapid development of the global green bond market in recent years, the Ministry of Finance could see the opportunity to develop new and innovative instruments to finance green projects. We then developed the Green Bond and Green Sukuk framework in 2017 that sets out the management and use of proceeds, project eligibility and criteria and reporting mechanism of Green Sukuk issued by the government. The framework was reviewed by the leading independent reviewer, which is Cicero from Norway, and given medium green shape. Ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia is the first sovereign Sukuk issuance. The rise of Green Sukuk initiative helps to grow the global Sukuk market in the long term, as the current crisis could encourage potential new issues. Both sovereign and corporate secondary market spread of Sukuk to consider access to the market to find new funding resources. Since 2018, the government has successfully entered the market and issued global Sukuk at the total amount of 5 billion US dollar. The issuance in 2018 represent the world debut sovereign green Sukuk issuance and the first ever issuance under the Republic's Green Bond and Green Sukuk framework. The issuance of Green Sukuk in 2022 printed the largest ever Green Sukuk tranche globally. In the domestic market, the government of Indonesia issued the first retail Green Sukuk in the world in November 2019, issued in 2020 and in 2021. The government of Indonesia has published its annual Green Sukuk report as required by the ROI Green Bond and Green Sukuk framework 4 times is it in 2019, 2020, and 2021, and the latest one is in 2022. The report has also gained assurance from KPMG, from PwC, and EY on the suitability of the green Sukuk issuance process with the framework. The government of Indonesia is committed to transparent reporting of its climate financing. This includes the use of green Sukuk funds on selected environmental projects and their estimated impacts. According to the Green Sukuk report, Indonesia's Green Sukuk shows the potential that exists to significantly boost public and private investment in adaptation and building resilience while also reducing carbon emission. It has covered 5 sectors, namely renewable energy, energy efficiency, improving climate resilience for vulnerable areas, sustainable transportations, and waste management and waste to energy. The underlying consists of line ministries project from the Ministry of Public Works, Ministry of Transportation, and Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. Ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia's commitment to achieving SDGs is not merely about fulfilling global agreements, but also accomplishing Indonesia's vision of increasing people's well-being. To achieve this, we have expanded our green framework to cover more aspects, not only green, but also social and blue financing. The framework is called the SDG Government Securities Framework, which then obtained second-party opinion from CICERO and IISD. This framework is the basis for the issuance of the SDGs bonds of the Republic of Indonesia on September 2021. At the debut of SDGs bond issuance of euro 500 million euro. The issuance of Indonesia SDGs bond denominated in euro is the debut of the issuance of SDGs bonds by the Indonesia government and one of the first conventional SDGs bond issuance in Asia, reflecting Indonesia leadership in sustainable financing and a significant step toward achieving the SDGs. Ladies and gentlemen, the government initiative support from all stakeholders in developing a sustainable finance program in Indonesia. We also encourage other sovereigns, private sector, and SOEs to follow the government initiative by issuing green bond or green Sukuk to combat climate change impact. We are excited to share our experience with other countries and to enhance collaboration and partnership among global stakeholders. Indonesia stands ready to make real actions to support this agenda. We hope that today's event can be another important milestone toward sustainable finance to grow more in the future. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, Ibu Dwi Rianti, for your comprehensive opening remarks. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are moving forward to the following agenda, that is opening remarks delivered by Mr. Rob Ward, Deputy Director of International Financial Services, Her Majesty's Treasury. To Mr. Ward, you may have the screen now.
Great, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and good afternoon to all of you. It's a great pleasure to be joining you today. So thank you very much for the opportunity to say a few words. I'm delighted that this event on Green Sukuk is taking place and to be doing so in partnership with the Indonesian Ministry of Finance, the Islamic Finance Council UK and the Islamic Development Bank. The climate crisis is the biggest challenge of our generation, and it will require concerted efforts from countries, both individually and collectively, if we are to have any chance of addressing it. And green finance will need to be right at the heart of those efforts. And so it will be essential that all countries around the world embrace this as they make their journey towards becoming net zero. And here in the UK, we have already taken a series of steps towards greening our financial system. We were the first major economy to commit to making disclosures aligned with the Task Force on Climate-related Financial Disclosures fully mandatory, having committed to do so by 2025. And in September last year, the UK successfully issued its first inaugural Green Gilt and set a number of records at the same time. This was the largest sovereign green bond issuance. It also had the largest order book for a sovereign green bond, and it had the largest so-called greenium for inaugural offering, demonstrating the low cost to the government and the really strong demand that there was for the issuance. And the UK is really keen that the Islamic financial services sector continues to play a significant role in this crucial journey to net zero. And not least because of the really strong existing synergies between the values of Islamic finance and sustainable finance. And I know that the UK Islamic Finance Council is doing excellent work to develop this agenda. My colleagues and I in the UK Treasury are very proud that we were able to be a founding member of their Sustainable Development Goals Task Force, which is exploring the role the Islamic finance industry can play in tackling the climate crisis. In particular, we are pleased to be working in partnership with the UK IFC as part of the high-level working group on Green Sukuk, which was launched at COP in November last year, as this group will play a really key role in coordinating international efforts to position Green Sukuk as a viable means of mobilizing finance at scale for sustainable projects. It is also great that we are joined today by other working group members, the Islamic Development Bank and the Indonesian Ministry of Finance, to continue to take forward this agenda. And I really look forward to seeing further outputs at future COP summits. Now, here in the UK, we see Green Sukuk as a key instrument that can help countries around the world meet their climate ambitions. And it is often the case that this positive impact can be felt most strongly in developing nations looking to attract investment at scale to their green projects. And it is great to see Indonesia leading the charge on Green Sukuk, as we've just heard, with annual Green Sukuk issuances since 2018, including the $750 million Green Sukuk in 2021 and the retail Green Sukuk in 2019. And I'm sure there are many among us that are really keen to hear from Indonesia's experience and to learn from that. And so we're very much looking forward to the presentations later today from the Indonesian Ministry of Finance, as well as from the Islamic Development Bank. As for the UK's experience in the Sukuk space, which I understand my Treasury and Debt Management Office colleagues will be discussing in more detail later, in March 2021, we issued our second sovereign Sukuk, which was more than double the size of the first issuance back in 2014. Now, this increased the supply of high quality Sharia compliant liquid assets to the market and has really successfully supported the development of Islamic finance products more widely in the UK market. And at £500 million, the issuance also signalled the UK's determination to build on our position as the leading Western hub for Islamic finance. And while it is fair to say that the UK government has no current plans to issue its own Green Sukuk, we are nevertheless really keen to support the Green Sukuk agenda in the UK and globally. So let me just conclude by really reaffirming the UK's commitment to green finance and Islamic finance, and not only as separate agendas, but as areas of great overlap, and where we have a very strong interest in capitalising on these synergies to help achieve our global climate targets. And I know that today's session will play a very useful role in doing just that. And so we are exceptionally pleased to contribute to this work. And I really look forward to our further discussions. So thank you very much for the time and all the very best for the discussions today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ward. Now, ladies and gentlemen, following the trend that is happening currently around the globe, or at least here in Indonesia, in any virtual event, I'd like to invite all the speakers, participants, and moderator to turn the camera on, since we're going to have a photo session. Okay, this is very happening here in Indonesia, in any virtual event. Okay, this is indicating the G20 spirit of recover together, recover stronger. So we take a picture together, we become stronger. hopefully. Okay, now I would like to invite all the speakers, participants to join us in a photo session today. Okay, give your best smiles. I'll count to 3, and on 3, the committee will help us take the picture. Okay, on 3, 1, 2, 3. Cheers. Okay, probably 1 or 2 times more. 1, 2, 3. One more time. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're coming to the main agenda of this seminar, that is a discussion on opportunities and challenges in green sukuk. And to lead the discussion, I'd like to invite my colleague, Russell Marsh. Hi, Russell.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. Okay, over to you, Russell.
Thank you for that, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm very pleased to be here this afternoon to moderate the session this afternoon. My name is Russell Marsh. I'm a associate partner at EY in Singapore, and EY is leading a UK government program supporting the deployment of sustainable finance across ASEAN, including in Indonesia. And I will be moderating the session this afternoon. So for about the next hour and a half, we have about 5 presentations on different aspects of green sukuk, both from Indonesia perspective and the UK perspective. There will also be an opportunity to ask questions of the various speakers this afternoon. If you do have a question, please do post it in the chat box for the WebEx, and then when we get to the relevant point in the session, I will try to get to as many of the questions as I can. So moving on to the first presentation of this afternoon, we're going to hear from Nana Riana, who is the head of the Subdirectorate of Regulation and Legal Analysis of State Sharia Securities in the Ministry of Finance, and we're going to talk about showcasing Indonesia's achievement in green sukuk. Over to you. Looking forward to your presentation.
Good afternoon. Good morning, everyone in UK. Thank you, Russell. I'm happy here to share our experience about our green sukuk issuance in our country. So to start with, anyone from the committee that share my material? Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. So basically, our commitment towards the climate change is coming from our condition that Indonesia is very vulnerable to the climate change. More than 80% of disaster occurrence in Indonesia is related to meteorological disasters. It means that it's really related or really connected to the climate change. As you know, that Indonesia is one of the biggest archipelago country in the world, comprising more than 17,000 islands, more than the 800 million hectares area, yeah? And then the length of the territory more than 95 kilometers. That's why Indonesia is very vulnerable to this climate change. And also in terms of the GHG emissions, it seems that there is a significant increase from 2016 from 2002 to 2016 that there is significant increase of more than 50% of carbon dioxide emissions. This is something that really need to concern about. And also in terms of the economical costs, the climate change costs more than 14 billion US dollar to the economy of Indonesia. That's why from this stage, we promise our commitment to reduce the impact of the climate change. For the next slides, our commitment is delivered to set in like national. Sorry, next slides, please. Our commitment is delivered to National Action Plan for GHG emission reduction in 2011, and then National Action Plan on Climate Change Adaptation in 2014, and finally in 2016 we ratified the Paris Agreements. And in 2021, we just updated our NDC and our long-term strategy on low carbon and climate resilience in 2015. And then we also manage our objectives towards zero carbon emission by 2060. It means that in 2060 we would like to achieve the net zero emission by introducing or by developing new and renewable energy resources. So coming from like solar, hydro, geothermal, and wind. For the next slides, based on our commitment, we see that to achieve the target NDC in 2030, 29% business as usual, and 41% if we got international support. We see that to achieve this target, there is a significant cost to be involved. It's more than like 241 billion US dollar based on the second biennial update report 2018, or it's about 263 billion US dollar if according to the NDC Mitigation Roadmap Indonesia report. It means that we need integrated policies to ensure that the target of these financing needs are fulfilled. That's why in Ministry of Finance, we developed creative and innovative financing to support the financing gap of the financing needs for climate change. Next slide. Based on this financing gap, in 2017 and 2018, we developed what we call as the green bond or Sukuk framework. Approach, project evaluation and selection, management approach, and finally supporting. And this framework is not only the framework that we had in 2021. Next slide. We developed this framework. So this framework is not only cover only on the green focus, but also we would like to extend our focus to also cover on blue focus and also on social focus. That's why in 2021 we developed what we call as SDG government securities framework. This framework is only the extension of our green Sukuk framework. So we would like to cover not only on the green sector, not only on the green focus, but also we would like to cover just in case we would like to issue like a green bond or a blue bond or blue Sukuk. Then also we would like to cover also on the social focus or for the SDG focus. Of course, this framework in line with the green bond principles, sustainability bond guidelines, the social bond principle, and ICMF. Next slide. This is our experience of our green Sukuk issuance starting from 2018 until last year, until this year, 2022. The total of our green Sukuk in our global market is around $5 billion US. So this year, last May, we just issued the largest green Sukuk ever that had by the Republic. Is amount of 1.5 billion US dollar. This is the largest green Sukuk that we been issued. Of course, there are a couple of highlights from our green Sukuk issuance on May this year. The largest, not only the largest ever global Sukuk transaction from the Republic, but also this is the largest green Sukuk tranche ever printed globally. And the last is this is the first green Sukuk tranche in 10-year maturity issued by our country. not only in global market, our commitment also also implemented in our domestic market by issuing what we call as retail green sukuk in the domestic market. This is instrument that dedicatedly for the you know, the individual investors. So every single individual in the country can tap the market, can buy this instrument, and this is sold through a online platform. So everyone in this country can buy this retail green sukuk by online platform by using a gadget and also by using mobile phone, mobile banking. That's easier for everyone. So in total, we issued in the domestic retail market around 11.8 trillion rupiah, or it's about like 845 million US dollar. This is what we promised to the market. This is part of our commitment to support our NDC target by reducing the financing gap of our financing needs for climate change. And for the next slide, please. So what we have been achieved by issuing the green sukuk, for the impact of green sukuk has been widely accepted. Yeah. In terms of the emission reduction, we totally, for example, the highlight impact report from green sukuk issuance in 2018. In total, we have reduced more than 5.7 million tons of carbon dioxide or equivalent, and more than like 23 green projects, more than 700 double track train in North Java, more than 121 units of solar, mini hydro, micro hydro and power plants, and more than 3.4 million families that get a benefit from the waste treatment systems in the country. So in terms of the green project per sector, as I mentioned before, we had like 9 eligible sectors, but basically we only distribute to 5 major sectors in our green sukuk, starting from renewable energy, energy efficiency, resilient to climate change, waste management, and also sustainable transport. And we, as part of our commitment to the framework, we also produce our impact report, starting the first from 2019, the first impact report audited by KPMG, the second impact report audited by PwC in 2020, the third impact report audited by EY, Russell from EY. This is the third impact report published in 2021. And the last report just released last month in May 2021, also audited by EY. This is part of our commitment, and this is part of our transparency to the public on how we are going about the green sukuk issuance in our country. The next slide. Okay, something that important to tell you about what's the benefit of the Republic that issue green sukuk. The first thing, of course, we got like international recognition. We have been recognized as the first sovereign issuer of green sukuk, and also the world first sovereign issuer of retail green sukuk. That's, I think, the best recognition that we got from the international communities. And the second, we also got international awards, more than 15 awards that's related to green sukuk we got from international institutions like the Climate Bond Initiatives, Finance Asia, IFR Asia, Islamic Finance News, Global Capital Economy, Global Capital Euromani, the Asset AAA, and Cambridge IFA. The third thing is that we set the benchmark for other sovereigns and also private entities to also follow our rules, our experience. That's really important to note that at least as sovereigns, we can take a step ahead from to describe to the market, to show to the market, to show to the world that we have big concern, we have a high concern on the climate change. And the last thing that, of course, by using the green sukuk, we have contributed to achieve the energy target in 2023, 29% to reducing the GHG emission reduction, or 41% with the international support of GHG reduction. And also we also aim to achieve the net zero emission by 2060 or sooner. That's, I think, couple of major benefits that the Republic got by issuing the green sukuk. And the last thing is about the lessons learned and also challenge that we face during the issuance. The first thing is that, you know, that to issue thematic bond or sukuk, we need extra effort, really need extra effort from the framework preparation, from the framework review, from the second party opinion, and then the delivering the impact report on the annual basis. And also the report is not only published to the public, but also it has to be reviewed by external auditor or the green assurance, for example, from EY, KPMG, and so on. That's the thing that we need to we need to deal with for the thematic bond or sukuk issuance. That's really need extra effort. The second thing is that as the green sukuk or green bond need really extra effort. That's why having the right partner, having the knowledgeable and reputable partners are very crucial to support both the framework development and also the issuance. Because without those extra support and significant contribution from the development partners, we didn't do anything by ourselves. That's why we have big contribution from UNDP Indonesia in this case, and also from our joint lead managers in this case. And also the third thing is that we need strong commitment and coordination from all stakeholders, especially from line minister. Why? Because you know, Minister of Finance is only the issuer of the green sukuk, but the underlying project lies in different line ministers. That's why to match the needs for underlying asset of underlying green asset and the needs for the financing sector, we need a strong collaboration and strong commitment. So in the case that we need to provide like impact report, we can provide the impact, we can measure the impact of the project on the correct manners. That's the thing. And the last thing, last but not least, I think it's about the incentive to support more institution, more corporates to also issue green instrument. I think they need incentive. What we call as pricing benefit in this case, or greenium. So to encourage more parties to issue green bond or green sukuk or SDG instrument, I think the market should consider about greenium. So it's investment is nothing to do only with the return, but also it has something to do with the responsibility to the climate change. So this is the thing, I think, the challenge and lessons about the green sukuk issuance from our perspective from Indonesia. Thank you very much. I revert back to Russell, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that comprehensive presentation about the Indonesian Sukuk issuance. We're going to move straight on to the second presentation in this section, and after this next presentation we will have an opportunity for some questions. And so the next presentation is from Syed Hussain, who's the Acting Director in the Resilience and Social Development Department at the Islamic Development Bank. And they're going to talk about opportunities and challenges in green sukuk issuance. Syed, over to you. Looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much, Russell, and I really want to just appreciate all the organizers for putting together this wonderful session. We heard very well from Nana about all the various different examples and the strides that Indonesia is taking. And I think as far as the Islamic Development Bank is concerned, we've believed for now of quite a few years that innovative and alternative financing instruments really can contribute significantly for sustainable finance worldwide. And there's a lot that we need to do more about that. Earlier last month, we had our annual meeting in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, also incidentally the venue for the COP27 later this year. And we established a sustainability finance framework. We've been able to mobilize around $5 billion since the first time we established the framework. First, we came up with our debut green Sukuk, which was worth about 1 billion euros in 2019. And then we came up with the sustainability Sukuk, which was a mix of both green and social projects. That was worth $2.5 billion in 2021, which is the largest at that time of its class and with global investors. The framework that we established really outlined the eligibility reporting requirements of our portfolio and the kind of projects that we get into in the 57 member countries. And these are projects around renewable energy, clean transportation, energy efficiency, climate smart agriculture, agroforestry, sustainable water and wastewater management, and in supporting the creation of green jobs amongst many other items. The question that Russell was asking was about that. What are the challenges that we have faced and what are the challenges that others can probably face in this area? There are a few of them actually. And they can be mitigated by having a strong key focus on development and SDGs and mainstreaming them in your operations and policies and guidelines prior to these issuances as such. So some of the specific challenges that some could face when it comes to issuance of green Sukuk is to have the right data set at hand and to cater to the investors' demand for transparent information on projects, their expected impact, and the results that are going to be achieved on the ground. It's very important to present these items in a most accurate manner to demonstrate the crucial role that development institutions, nations play in this area. It was a challenge for us because you can imagine that with portfolios of more than $15 billion, it's quite an exercise, you know. So the other challenge is the format itself. This is the second major challenge. It's not a conventional bond issuance that is being issued with a green label. No, the new investors that get into the green Sukuk market need to also get comfortable with the Sukuk format as well. You know, and this is oftentimes investors approach this with some form of hesitation, and that requires on behalf of the issuers to have extra due diligence to make sure that their concerns are validated and taken care of. So as far as the Islamic Development Bank is concerned, we went through that additional exercise of conducting roadshows, extensive roadshows in various different countries to sensitize the investors about the Sukuk format and how this would be really a pioneering initiative that would provide a reasonable financial return actually for a AAA rated paper and make positive environmental impacts as we go forward. What looks like what's supposed to be the future of these Sukuk areas as such? It's extensive. The market is very small and it is growing. The convergence of environmental and social agendas are variations of green Sukuk areas, and we're looking at SDG Sukuk, sustainability Sukuk, and combining environmental and social outcomes in these frameworks. The projects need to be able to reflect those items. So these are just some what I wish to capture as the challenges being faced and opportunities that do exist in these items. And I'm sure we will have more extensive discussions in the Q&A rounds and other rounds as well. So Russell, over to you. Thank you from my side.
Thank you for that introduction to and your points of view on the issue of green Sukuk issuance. So we now do have time for a few questions of the last two speakers. So of both Syed and Nana. If you do have any questions for them, please use the chat function in WebEx to post your question, and we will pick them up and if we can direct them to the relevant speaker. But I am going to kick off with a couple of questions already to the speakers, and if I can go to Nana first in relation to sort of the MOF, Ministry of Finance's role in supporting the issuance of green Sukuk. So obviously, I mean, as you've outlined and as IDB outlined, there's quite a lot of complexity involved in issuing a green Sukuk and cost. So both time, complexity, and cost increase in issuing a green Sukuk. And given that the Indonesian government's desire to see more green Sukuks issued, has MOF or the government considered providing any incentives or other support to potential issuers?
Right. Thanks, Russell. You're right that to encourage more issuers in green instrument, we need provide incentives for them to tap the market to issue the green instruments. But in this case, I believe that Minister of Finance has no authority to regulate corporates. So in terms of the incentives, in Indonesia, we have incentive from Indonesian Exchange Indonesian Stock Exchange or IDX that they regulate incentive to listing for gain in instruments. So they provide like 50% discount on listing fee for gain instruments in Indonesia. And also the second is the incentive from OJK or FSA, Financial Service Agency. They provide like 25% discount on levies for corporates who register green bond transactions. So I hope that a kind of incentives encourage more investor and also more issuer to tap or to go to the market by issuing the green instruments. Of course, in the Ministry of Finance, we have authority regarding the fiscal incentive in terms of like tax incentives. But at the moment, the incentive provided by the MOF is only related to the investments in the real sector. For example, for the geothermal investment, we provide like tax discount or tax holiday for such an investment. So hopefully more and more issuer will come to the market to issue the green Sukuk or green bond. Thank you.
Thanks for that. And I guess, I mean, similar question to Syed, or maybe a bit of response to that, Syed, in terms of what would you like to see, what kind of support would you like to see the Indonesian government introduced to help support the issuance of green Sukuks?
Well, thank you, Russell, and thank you, Nana. I think Nana was expanding on that exceedingly well. And one of the things that we also heard earlier today from Dwi Iranti, the Director of Islamic Finance, was that Indonesia has had a very good track record and a story for green Sukuk, both at the sovereign and as well as the retail level, right? Issuing more than $4 billion of green Sukuk demonstrates Indonesia's commitment to support the development of this market further. I mean, I think it's also very fitting that this ties in very well with what we consider as Indonesia's NDC and long-term strategy as well. So taking the approach on climate action, financing through Sukuk, going hand in hand with already established avenues for Indonesia goes to show that green Sukuk is really a crucial role in mobilizing net resources and achieving that net zero target. And I think a lot of international investors, whether and sovereigns, whether they're in Malaysia, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and elsewhere, they've been actually taking a leaf out of Indonesia's book in that sense. So from the policy support perspective, we've reviewed Indonesia's national green Sukuk standards, the green bond and green Sukuk frameworks, and they're very good at that part. As far as policy support and incentives are concerned, I think as Nana mentioned, there's a lot of essential elements of regulating these activities and ensuring that the emphasis remains on coming up with just transition, with the opening up of more sectors and capacity building, right? Capacity building and capacity development is a critical need, really, of various different countries. The more countries, and even in Indonesia and elsewhere, we are able to develop finance professionals who understand the climate change dynamics along with the inherent risks that exist, they can play a very important role and significant role in the funding strategies of climate action and to execute them regularly. So these are human resource development, expertise, training opportunities such as this particular webinar These are some very important elements of support that I think are crucial for the trajectory and the storyline of Indonesia being able to fulfill its promises. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Again, just sort of a reminder to the audience that if you have any questions you would like to ask the two speakers, to please post them in the chat, and we will say direct the question to the relevant speaker. I have a couple more questions before we move on to some of the other topics we're going to discuss this afternoon, and perhaps can get you. Side to take this one first, in terms of, I mean, what type of projects do you see being financed by green sukuk, either directly in Indonesia or more broadly in terms of the other countries that you're seeing green sukuk issuances? So what are the types of projects that you see so most potential to be financed through a green sukuk?
Yes, thank you, Russell. I think that's a very, very good question, and I was trying to reflect that in the opening as well, about how we're not just looking at green sukuk in isolation. Let's look at green sukuk and all the other different types of opportunities that can come through together. But if we were to just, for the moment, just stick on green sukuk, yes, we're talking about projects in renewable energy, clean transportation, efficiency, pollution prevention and control, environmental sustainable management of natural resources, all those mitigation adaptation type of projects that come into it. But if we sort of expand the areas of conversions of these items, we are looking at sustainability sukuk and social sukuk. So green sukuk definitely focuses more on having those positive environmental outcomes, but social sukuk can be combined as well. That can have positive social outcomes, sustainability to have both together, and SDG to have some form of a sustainable development goal imprint and responsible investment items. Tomorrow nations and multilateral institutions could be able to even talk about blue sukuk, the marine and ocean-based projects which have these positive outcomes as such. But all of these need to generate from some form of an LTS, the long-term support and strategies for low-carbon development pathways of countries. So these are really the starting points into that. So once the country is able to develop its NDCs and its LTSs, then we'll be able to see various different types of financing to be able to achieve those lofty ambitions as they go forward on that one. So that's what I thought.
Thank you. And a similar question to Nano, in terms of, has the Ministry of Finance taken a view as to sort of the volume of green sukuk it would like to see issued in Indonesia?
Thanks, Russell. I cannot say that the size of the size of the issuance in the Indonesian market, but I can see that the prospect is very good. So in this week, for example, two state-owned banks or SOE banks come to the market by issuing green bond, BNI and BRI, in total of 10 trillion IDR, 10 trillion IDR. It's very quite good, yeah, in this market. So it means that there is a high awareness of institution to issue green instrument in the market, and also there is a new requirement from the central bank that all the banks need to put their portfolio into what we call as requirement for macroprudential inclusive financing. It means that they have to put their portfolio into sustainable instruments. This is a good requirement. It's very good requirement, and also will encourage more banks, also more banks to not only issue the green instrument, but also to buy green instrument for their portfolio. And also in terms of the awareness from the market, from the investor, we can see that there is a significant increase of awareness of sustainable responsible investment amongst the youngest generations. For example, in our retail green sukuk issuance, the majority of the investors coming from the millennial generations. It means that more than 40% of millennial generations. It means that there tends to understand, there tends to be highly aware of the issue of climate change in this country. So I believe in the future the prospect of the green bond or green sukuk will increase significantly. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I haven't seen any more questions coming in directly to me, so I think we can very shortly move on to the next set of presentations. But before we did that, I just wanted to give the two speakers, Syed and Nana, the opportunity just to say a few things in closing. Any final messages you wanted to leave to either each other or to the audience more broadly? And perhaps Syed, you can start with you in terms of any final comments you wanted to leave us with.
No, thank you very much. I think really we've already seen a lot of good capture of learnings, but it's important to sort of continue with these initiatives of exchanging. I mean, I firmly believe that the more we really want to commend Indonesia for being really quite a bit of a pioneer actually in these areas. In supporting that. This is really the time of the hour. We need all the financing that we'll be able to generate, and really also want to appreciate the work that the G20 team and the organizers, Russell and everybody else, and Laura have been able to put together today's discussion. So yeah, more capacity development, more awareness raising, and more innovative solutions being discussed as we are doing so today. Thank you.
Thank you, Syed. And Nana, any final comments for either back to Syed or for the audience more widely?
Okay, thank you. So, Russell, to encourage more green instruments in the market, we believe we need strong collaboration, strong synergy, strong cooperation amongst all stakeholders, not only governments, private entities, private sectors, but also investors, because we live in the same planet. So if we would like to reduce our gas emission, we need to work together. In government can provide like incentives from government side, and also the investor, they can also provide incentive from the greenium sector, from greenium perspective. It means there's the investment is nothing only to do with return, but also how the investment can also support to the greener of this planet. So by providing a greenium, for example, that's I think something that's really important to note. We need collaboration among stakeholders in this world. Thank you.
Thank you for that. That's really helpful. And say thanks to both the speakers for their inputs this afternoon. I certainly found that really useful in terms of hearing both from the Indonesian government side in terms of their approach to using green sukuk, and certainly Indonesia has a leading position both in the region and globally in the issuance of both sovereign green bonds and sovereign green sukuks. And then obviously thank you, Syed, for your contributions in terms of your experience of issuing green bonds, sukuks in the market, both say in Indonesia and globally. So thank you both for your contributions. There may be questions that come through this in the next session. If they do, we'll try and pick them up at the end. But thank you for your time, and we'll move on to our next couple of speakers for this afternoon. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Russell. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. All the best. Thanks.
So moving on, we are now going to hear have two presenters from the UK. We're going to hear from Gurminder Butcher, who's from the UK Debt Management Office, and Nick Brown from Her Majesty's Treasury. And they're going to talk about both the UK experience of issuing a sukuk, then also talk about the UK experience of issuing their sovereign green bond. So I'll hand over to both of them to give themselves both a little bit of an introduction and to go on with their presentation. So welcome both of you. Looking forward to your presentation.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Russell. Thank you. Sorry, I jumped the gun a little bit there. So firstly, thank you all for inviting us along today. And it was great to hear the perspectives from my Indonesian colleagues just now. Really interesting to hear their experience of issuing a green Sukuk and really being a leader in this space, as Russell said. So my name's Nick Brown. I'm a senior policy advisor at Her Majesty's Treasury in the UK. And my team lead on the issuance of novel debt instruments. So that includes both the Sukuk issuances the UK has done, but also the green financing programme, both of which we're going to touch on today. And we work very closely with our colleagues at the UK Debt Management Office. So I'd invite Kemenkeu to say a quick hello too.
Hello, let's check everyone. Hello.
Hi, Kemenkeu. We can hear you a little bit. It's a little bit crackly.
Great. Yeah, apologies for that. I'm using a browser, so unfortunately, got the video to work, but you'll be able to hear me clearly. So I'm Kemenkeu, I policy team, the UK Engagement Office, responsible for advising the issuance program and also the debt issuance program has been set by HM Treasury. My team provides policy issues and my two Sukuk issues by the UK. Thank you. I'll hand back.
Thanks, Kemenkeu. You were a little bit crackly there with the audio, so I don't know if we can try and improve that. But thanks again for having us here. If we could share our slides, please. As Russell said, the UK, of course, has not issued a green Sukuk yet, unlike our Indonesian colleagues, and we currently have no plans to do so. However, we are, as Rob said at the top, very keen to help develop the green Sukuk industry, both in the UK and globally. And the UK has been a leader in the issuance of Sukuk, being the first Western country to do so back in 2014, and we did our second issuance last year. And also a leader in the sovereign green bond space as well, which I'll touch on briefly in our second presentation. But if we're able to share the slides for this presentation, we just wanted to talk through our experience of issuing a Sukuk as a Western country and how we see Sukuk issuance fitting in with our wider Islamic finance strategy. And we see it as all part of making the UK a dynamic financial centre for Islamic finance and green finance, and really be a leader in the Western world in both respects. So if we go to the first slide, please. I'm not sure if who's controlling the slides, but if we could go to the second slide, please.
We seem to be having a problem with the slide. There we go. There we go.
There we go.
There we go.
Thank you. If we go to the first slide, please. So this is actually for the second presentation. So if we could go to the first slide, the Sukuk presentation. Perfect. Thank you very much. So as I said, the UK, we became the first Western country to issue a sovereign Sukuk back in 2014. This was for a £200 million transaction, for which we won some nice awards, including the Euromoney Award for Innovations in Islamic Finance. I'd note we don't have quite as many awards as our Indonesian colleagues for the green Sukuk. But we followed this up last year with a second Sukuk transaction, which is well over double the size of our first issuance. This was for £500 million Sukuk, maturing in 2026, and again we received the Sovereign and Multilateral Deal of the Year at the IFN Awards last year. Both issuances followed an Al-Ajara structure and were sold to both UK and international investors. And I think we see this, and we have a lot of ministerial interest and cross-party support for this initiative. And these Sukuk issuances really are an important pillar of our UK Islamic finance strategy. And it's all part of our ambition and the government's ambition to make the UK the best place to do Islamic finance outside of the Islamic world. So I'm going to briefly touch on the next slide how we view the Sukuk program in the context of our wider Islamic finance strategy. So if we go to the next slide, please, and the next one as well, please. Thank you. Here are just some sort of the highlights about Islamic finance in the UK. And I think it shows the real progress we've made in making the UK a home for Islamic finance. And I think, just to pull out some of the highlights here. Firstly, I think the 40 years that Islamic finance has been sort of practiced in the UK, we have over 20 international banks operating Islamic finance, which I believe is the most in Europe or North America. And we have 4 fully Sharia compliant UK banks serving UK-based Muslims, which is the largest number for a Western country. And as of the last figures, which I think were from 2019, we have over £5 billion of Islamic banking assets. So this all really just shows, I think, the progress and the success the UK has made in being a welcoming home for Islamic finance outside of the Islamic world. And this is something that we're very proud of and something that we've been very keen to continue to promote in recent years, including with our Sukuk issuance last year. And the next slide will just show a quick timeline of some of the key progress we've made in the UK on Islamic finance since sort of the 1970s, really. And I won't go through all of these, but I'll just highlight some of the progress we've made, particularly in the Sukuk space. So the first Sukuk, private sector Sukuk, was listed on the London Stock Exchange back in 2006. And of course, we issued our first Sukuk in 2014. I think another important thing to flag was the launch of the Bank of England's Alternative Liquidity Facility, which went live last year. And the Bank of England was the first Western central bank to implement such an initiative in order to provide UK-based Islamic banks with high-quality liquid assets. And that really is seen as a complement to our Sukuk issuances. And of course, we followed this up with our second Sukuk issuance last year. On the next slide, we'll just see some of the policy that the UK has implemented to try and foster this positive Islamic finance community in the UK. Just to flag a few on the left-hand side, and this is just the steps that have been taken since 2014, since we issued our first Sukuk. We had the removal of double tax and the extension of tax reliefs on Islamic mortgages. We had the recognition of Sukuk from high-quality issuers like the IDB as repo eligible by the Bank of England. And the Finance Act in 2008 reformed arrangements for the issuances of Sukuk. I think they're just a flavour of some of the policy steps we've taken. And we're really pleased to see, and ministers were very pleased to see, that in the IFCI, the Islamic Finance Country Index in 2019, it ranked the UK 17th out of 48 countries. But importantly, we were ranked first in Europe and the first among non-Muslim majority nations, which again was something we were very proud about and really reinforces our ambition to remain the leader in Islamic finance in the Western world. And then very finally, on the next slide, this just sort of shows the growth of Islamic finance in the UK. And I think it just reiterates the point that I said about the sort of cross-party political support this key policy objective has garnered in the UK over sort of the last 10 plus years. And there's sort of 2 dual policy objectives for our Islamic finance strategy. One is to, as I've said, establish and maintain London as the leading Western hub for Islamic finance, international Islamic finance. And I think the evidence suggests that we have achieved that, though we're by no means complacent. But on the other side, the important sort of domestic policy objective is to ensure that nobody in the UK is denied access to competitively priced financial products on account of their faith. And in that respect, we're really pleased to be able to support the 4 fully Sharia compliant UK Islamic banks and all the other financial institutions serving UK Muslims in the country. So on the next slide, that was sort of a bit of context about the Islamic finance strategy more broadly. So then it sort of follows on from that why we choose to issue sovereign Sukuk and why we choose to do this while a lot of other Western countries have chosen not to do. We sort of see 4 main reasons for it. Firstly, as I mentioned, it's to sort of cement the UK's position as a leading Western hub for Islamic finance. And so it's really to show that we're walking the walk as well as talking the talk on this stuff. Secondly, it's to support wider engagement with Islamic economies as part of the UK government's sort of global Britain vision, and being able to participate in really interesting events such as today's. Thirdly, support UK-based Islamic banks through the provision of high-quality Sharia-compliant liquid assets to foster greater financial inclusion in the UK. And we're really pleased to see that good participation from the UK-based Islamic banks in both issuances of our Sukuk. And as I say, we see this as a complement to the Bank of England's ALF facility rather than a substitution. And then finally, the fourth objective of our Sukuk issuance was to encourage the growth of domestic Islamic finance industry. And we're really keen to see UK corporates and other entities enter the Sukuk space. And we have seen some of that since 2014. But that's something we're keen to continue to promote, including green Sukuk and other structures. So I'm going to hand over to Kemenkeu now just to give a few highlights of our 2 transactions to date. But I hope that provided some of the context for why the UK is really focused on the Sukuk market and continues to want to help develop it both globally and in the UK. But I'll hand over to Kemenkeu now.
Thanks very much, Nick. Can I just check, is the sound a bit clearer?
Yeah, that's much better.
Brilliant. Thank you. So yes, just following on from Nick, I will talk about the 2 specific sovereign transactions that we undertook in the Sukuk space. I just wanted to start by saying that issuance of sovereign Sukuk has been designed to deliver the wider benefits that Nick stated earlier, including reinforcing London's status as the leading centre for Islamic finance outside of the Islamic world, and promoting greater trade and investment into the UK, rather than being part of the government's ongoing debt management policy. So the early, just in terms of a little bit of a lead up to the first transaction, the early 2000s saw various changes in tax laws, increasing regulatory understanding and oversight, and sustained cooperation between the UK government, the Bank of England, financial regulators, practitioners and community groups, all of which help lay the groundwork for Islamic finance to be undertaken on a cost-effective and efficient basis in the UK. Laying this groundwork was a process that was undertaken over several years, in particular the supporting legal and regulatory framework for the issuance. Following the then Prime Minister's announcement in 2013, setting out the UK's ambitions in the Islamic finance space, a project team comprising HM Treasury and DMO officials was formed with the aim of issuing the Sukuk as soon as feasible. In January 2014, we appointed structuring and legal advisors to work with us to issue our first UK sovereign Sukuk in the financial year 2014-15. On 12th of June 2014, the government announced that it intended to issue the Sukuk in the coming weeks, subject to market conditions, and confirmed the appointment of syndicate banks to help market and execute the transaction. A series of physical roadshows followed in the following week, at which officials from the Treasury and the DMO met with potential investors across the Middle East, Asia, and also a group meeting held in London. On 25th of June of 2014, the Treasury, acting through the DMO, issued £200 million of 5-year Sukuk. The UK thereby became the first country outside of the Islamic world to issue sovereign Sukuk. The deal attracted strong demand of 2.3 billion from a broad geographical base of investors and enabled the Sukuk to price flat to the underlying government bonds, known as gilts in the UK, keeping in line with the aims to deliver good value for money for the taxpayer. Moving on to the next slide and the second issue. On 22nd of March 2021, the DMO announced the UK government's intention to issue its second sterling-denominated Sukuk with a long 5-year tenor, using the commonly used Al-Ijara Sukuk structure in line with the debut issuance. Following a 3-day virtual marketing period, which included a global investor call and a number of virtual group investor meetings, the government launched the UK's second sovereign Sukuk by syndication. The deal size was set at £500 million, and the spread was set again flat to the reference UK government bond. High quality orders were received from investors representing a diversified geographical spread amounting to more than £625 million worth of demand, allowing the government to issue its second Sukuk offering at more than double the issue size of the debut issuance, making it the largest sterling denominated Sukuk issuance to date. Just moving on to the next slide. I won't talk too much about the structure, but very briefly, both transactions use the familiar Al-Ijara head lease and sublease Sukuk structure. The government chose to issue using this structure because this method is generally considered to be a plain vanilla structure and historically has been the preferred approach of several first-time sovereign issuers. In the UK, issuance of Sukuk under this structure has helped provide proof of concept that the legislative framework works. Thanks for listening. At this point, I'll hand back to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for that. It probably makes most sense for you to go straight into your next presentation on the green gilt, I think, as you call it, and then we can pick up a couple of questions at the end of that presentation. So if that's okay, we can go to your second presentation.
Sure. Thanks very much, Russell. Yeah, let's dive straight in because yeah, there's some interesting parallels, I think, between our green gilt program, as we call it, or green financing program, and our Indonesian colleagues' green Sukuk issuance. So if we could bring up the next set of slides, that'd be great. Thanks very much. So as I say, the UK last year issued our first sovereign green bonds, or as we call them, green gilts. So these are green variants of our conventional government bonds. And while we're by no means the first to this party, as you know, there are lots of sovereigns who have issued green bonds before us. We're very proud of our program and the success we've had, and we see it as a key tenet of our wider green finance strategy and our ambition to make the UK a centre for green finance, just like we aim to make it a sort of a centre for Islamic finance as well. And so, you know, why is the UK issuing green bonds? What was the strategic rationale for doing this, and why did we decide to do it in 2021 for the first time? Firstly, these proceeds raised from these green gilts, as with a green Sukuk, will help finance projects that are critical to tackling climate change, biodiversity loss, and other environmental challenges, both in the UK and around the world. And the government really made a big push on this last year in our role as host of COP26 in Glasgow, and also as a chair of the G7. And a key ambition of those leadership roles was to encourage the global spread of ESG financing, both by governments and other entities. So there are a few strategic objectives to our green bond issuance. And again, I think they chime with what our Indonesian colleagues mentioned with their green Sukuk. One was to encourage green bond and other ESG bond issuance by UK corporates and other entities. There's some good evidence that when a sovereign comes to market with one of these instruments, there is a catalytic effect amongst corporates and other issuers. And so that's something we're very keen to see, as I say, from UK corporates and other entities. And we're in regular dialogue with potential issuers of all kinds in that respect. Secondly, to support the greening of investment portfolios, particularly among UK pension funds, who are some of the largest investors in UK government bonds. And we saw great participation from them in our early green gilt issuances. And thirdly, to reinforce the UK's position as a leader in finance and green finance in particular. And I'll talk in a moment about some of the innovations we included in our programme in an attempt to sort of push this market forwards further. And then there were the debt management objectives. So one of the reasons we were a little bit slow, if you like, to come to this market was because we wanted real confidence in the value for money case of issuing green bonds. And by sort of late 2020, we had the confidence that these instruments would be met with strong and sustained demand, and would also meet our debt management objectives. And as our Indonesian colleagues touched on, we had increasing confidence in this idea of a greenium, or at least the idea that these bonds would price competitively to conventional bonds, if not more favorably to them. And I'll touch on that again in a moment. And then finally, another debt management objective was the diversifying of the UK's gilt investor base. As many of you are aware, there's a large dedicated ESG investor base out there. And this was a means of tapping into that investor base. And as I'll talk about in a moment, we're really pleased to see participation from investors that don't ordinarily participate in UK government bond transactions. So if we go on to the next slide, just a very brief timeline of how we got to this point. And we're really pleased we went from an announcement of our intentions in this space to the debut issuance in under a year. And I think that was one of the quickest of any sovereign to date. And there's a lot of hard work and stress behind the scenes, but we were really pleased to be able to come to market quickly after we made the decision to enter this market. So the Chancellor of the Exchequer announced in November 2020 that the UK would issue its first green gilt in the next year. And stressed that this would be the first in a series of issuances as the UK looks to build out what we call a green yield curve, so issuing at multiple maturities. We thought this was a really important long-term commitment to signal our intent to sort of stay in the space and build a deep liquid market in UK green government bonds. And what we like to say is we try to make these green gilts as gilt-like as possible. So we want them to trade and achieve the sort of liquidity benefits of the regular gilt program. So the Chancellor first made that announcement in November 2020. We then worked behind the scenes on the development of a framework document, which is sort of a key part of a green financing program. This was published in late June 2021, which then allowed us to come to market with our first and second green gilt issuances in the autumn of that year in the run-up to COP. We also put on sale our retail green savings bonds in October 2021. And I was really interested to hear about the Indonesian retail experience too in that regard. So that's sort of a quick timeline. If we go to the next slide, these are just a few details about our issuances. So as I say, we in the first financial year of our program, we raised over £16 billion, or around $20 billion via 2 green gilt issuances. We were pleased to see both experience strong demand, and we also saw evidence of a greenium. Our advisors, HSBC, estimated a greenium of about 2.5 basis points compared to a conventional gilt of equivalent maturity, which is one of the largest greeniums, I think the largest greenium seen in a debut green bond transaction by any sovereign at the time. Our first issuance raised over £10 billion, which made it the largest inaugural sovereign green bond issuance of any country to date. While our second issuance, which was slightly smaller in size, of over £6 billion, was the longest maturity of any sovereign green bond outstanding. So we're really pleased to set some records and new milestones in this market, which, as I say, we were by no means the first to, but we were keen to sort of develop further. We also conducted our first green gilt auction. So the first 2 issuances were via syndication. We used a different distribution method of an auction in May of this year, raising an additional £2 billion. And we can intend to raise a further £8 billion in this financial year. So that's all just to say that this demonstrates, I think, the UK's long-term commitment to this market and intending to participate in size in this market. I think we're currently the 3rd largest issuer of sovereign green bonds in the world, despite only beginning in September last year. On the next slide, I'll just touch very briefly on our framework document because, as our Indonesian colleagues mentioned, this is sort of the key manifesto for our program. And we developed this in accordance with the ICMA Green Bond Principles and drafted it throughout the first half of 2021, working really closely with our
Hi, looks like we lost Nick there. Not quite sure what happened, but he disappeared from my screen. Kemenkeu, can you confirm that I think Nick has dropped off the call?
Yes, I can't hear him, so I'll
Okay.
just drop in an email.
Sure.
Ask if he can get back in.
I'm sure he's aware that he has dropped off. We'll obviously wait, see if we can get Nick back in. But perhaps I can just, Kemenkeu, I can perhaps just ask you a question as you do that. I think I heard you correctly, but perhaps you can just clarify that the UK at the moment doesn't necessarily have any plans to issue a green Sukuk. So it's issued, it has there have been two Sukuks issued in the UK, but the UK government itself is not looking to issue a green Sukuk.
Yes, that's right. There are no current plans in terms of us looking to issue green Sukuk at the moment.
Okay.
That's not on the agenda at the moment.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Okay, and I don't know if so we might just wait one other minute to see if Nick comes back. If he doesn't, we can move on to the last section of speakers for this afternoon, and hopefully by the time if you do that, Nick will come back. I don't think he'd had many more slides to present. I think he was getting near the end of his presentation, but it might be useful just to say if we can get a couple of questions to him on the green gilt experience. So, but perhaps say, given that he's obviously not coming back, and this is always the challenge with doing.
Sorry, Russell. Can I just come in? I've just heard from Nick. So his WebEx crashed, so he's just logging back in.
Okay. Well, I'll keep talking.
Fingers crossed.
Okay, I'll keep talking to see if he comes back. And this is always the challenge when you're doing these online events. That the system can crash. It's happened to me a couple of times over the last couple of years of doing this. That for no apparent reason, either your laptop crashes or the WebEx app itself crashes, and you get thrown out of the system. But obviously, let's see if we can get Nick back in. And I think obviously what's really interesting is again how about from the presentations from the UK, sort of how they're trying to demonstrate the strength and the centrality of the UK financial system, both in terms of say being able to issue both support the Sukuk market, but also through using green gilts as they call them to support activities going on in the UK. And certainly I think the experience the UK's had will be certainly helpful to other countries who are looking to do that kind of thing. But obviously, as we heard earlier, Indonesia, a leading country in the region, if not globally, both in terms of sovereign green issuances themselves, but also in terms of using green Sukuk more recently to support activities in Indonesia. So actually, I know Nick said he was going to dial back in again. I want to make sure we do try and keep this session to time. We've got about half an hour left, so perhaps what we will do now is move to the last session, and then when Nick is back in, we can get him to say a few final words at the end of the session today. So we are now going to hear about the work of the high-level working group. On Islamic finance. We have, I think, if I'm correct, we have 3 speakers. We have Omar, who's the managing director of the UK Islamic Finance Council. We have a speaker from Emirates MBD, and we have a speaker from the London Stock Exchange. I think I'm correct in that. Perhaps the speakers who are contributing to this session could just give themselves a brief introduction, and say I'll hand over to them to make their comments in relation to the work of the high-level working group, and then say perhaps have a few final questions, and hopefully Nick will be back by then before we close in about half an hour. So over to those of you who are representing the high-level working group.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Russell, and you did well there to manage the technology problems there that Nick's gone through. Thank you. My name's Omar Sheikh. I'm a director at the UK Islamic Finance Council. The UK IFC is a NGO and is one of the leading advocacy bodies for green and sustainable and responsible finance within the Islamic finance arena. We've been promoting this thematic for just over a decade now. And been leading the charge in this space. Now, in 2020, following plans in 2019, we launched the Global Islamic Finance and UN SDGs Task Force. This was launched with the HMT and Islamic Development Bank and 40 plus global Islamic financial institutions to really look at where Islamic finance as an industry can engage with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. The ISDB have reported the financing gap for the OIC region alone to achieve the SDGs is somewhere between 700 billion and $1 trillion. The task force has 4 key working groups. Those working groups are, number 1, reporting and disclosure, where we've issued a report on the UN PRB, how Islamic banks can engage and sign up to the UN PRB. The second area is education and awareness. We've been hosting a number of webinars and roundtables on the SDGs and what do the SDGs mean for the Islamic finance sector at a commercial level, not just at a governmental level. We are currently conducting one of the largest ever global retail surveys on customer expectations and demands towards an understanding of the SDGs. Our third area of work was a working group launched by the governor of the State Bank of Pakistan, which specifically was looking at that geography and working together with the State Bank, mobilized nearly 15 financial institutions to look at the PRB and the broader sustainability thematic. And our fourth area, which we'll focus on today, is the high-level working group for green and sustainable finance, which was launched at COP 26 in Glasgow. That was launched, and the context of that particular working group was off the back of a report which we were commissioned to do by UNDP Indonesia. That was looking specifically at the work of the Indonesian government in issuing the seminal retail and wholesale, indeed, green sovereign Sukuk. The report we issued there unpacks that in detail. I know Pak Nana was on earlier in this webinar talking about that experience. But that report you find on our website details what was involved, the challenges they had, the insights that were garnished, and also looks at some of the other sustainability Sukuk issuances from ISDB, from Majid Al Futtaim Group, from HSBC Amana, Kagamas et al. In that report, we felt there was a commercial opportunity of $30 to $50 billion in the green and sustainable Sukuk space over the coming years, and we felt that it was imperative to achieve that to help the industry and indeed us as a global financial markets achieve the UN SDGs targets by 2030. So at COP26, we launched the high-level working group for Green Sukuk. Our founding partners with us at the launch were Her Majesty's Treasury. John Glenn was with us there at COP26. Ms. Mulyani Indrawati, the Minister of Finance from Indonesia. London Stock Exchange Group, Julia Hoggett was with us there. And we had Emirates NBD as a strategic partner also joining, along with Dr. Zamir from Islamic Development Bank. The working group has 3 key objectives, one of which was to ensure that Islamic finance is represented at every COP summit for the next 3 years to highlight, to increase awareness of the instrument and to proactively encourage the issuance of such Sukuks. The other objective was to ensure that Islamic finance aligns with the global standards in green and sustainable Sukuk bond issuances, and to address very specific challenges that we have within the Islamic finance industry. I'm great, and I'd like to now welcome Shrey Kohli, who's head of debt capital markets at LSEG, who has kindly taken on the role to chair the high-level working group for green and sustainable Sukuk. So I'll hand over to Shrey, can talk more about what they're doing at LSEG, what they're seeing in the market, and more from there. Shrey, over to you.
Thank you, Omar, and a big thank you to the G20 to allow us to present to you today. As Omar said, my name is Shrey Kohli. I head debt capital markets at the London Stock Exchange Group, a global financial market infrastructure provider. And I personally lead the LSE's sustainable bond market, which has seen over $350 bond issuances in green, social, sustainability format, and have collectively raised over $150 billion globally. This includes the UK's Green Gilts program, which you heard from Nick earlier, as well as first issuances from emerging markets, the Asia Pacific region, the GCC and the MENA region, as well as Central and Eastern Europe and the Americas. So it really is a global market that we look at. And through the high-level working group, which, as Omar mentioned, was launched at the in November in Glasgow, what we've managed to do in the 6 months since is assemble a fantastic group of global participants, including issuers within the Sukuk market, issuers such as the Islamic Development Bank, Etihad Group, Emirates NBD itself, which you'll hear from Hitesh in a short period of time, global banks such as HSBC, Emirates NBD, and active participants within the legal community, including law firms such as White & Case, Deckard, Norton Rose Fulbright, who are in the weeds of the actual transaction making within both the green and sustainable bond markets, as well as Sukuk markets. And so far, what we've seen is 4 emerging themes appear. And the working group is working towards delivering a report before the next COP, COP27 at Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, to describe the state of the market and how it can be driven forward. So this year, from a capital markets perspective, we've seen approximately by the end of May, about $60 billion of Sukuk issued globally. And last year, we saw about $180 billion. So now this follows the trends which we're seeing in global capital markets due to constraints as well as geopolitical crisis, a slower or lower activity within debt capital markets. But within Sukuk markets, there's still a lower proportion of green and sustainability Sukuk than in conventional bond markets. So the emerging themes which the group has discussed include raising education and awareness and building capacity within Sukuk as well as green and sustainability Sukuk markets. Dr. Zamir Iqbal described this as the double ESG problem, where it is not only establishing a green and sustainability framework, but also establishing and looking at the assets underlying a Sukuk program itself. So there's a major initiative to help issuers understand across the world about not only setting up a Sukuk program, but also what it takes to set up a framework which allows you to issue under a green and sustainable format. And you heard from Nick about the UK's own experience about setting up the Green Gilt program. Beyond sustainability frameworks and the capacity building to set up a program itself, we have also talked about a few product-related aspects to the Sukuk structure itself. There's a question about whether global standards for investors and issuers can be pursued, particularly where certain domestic standards diverge with international standards. And there's also been a discussion whether we can engage with the International Capital Markets Association about bringing together case studies or guidance for how the global frameworks under the green and social and sustainability bond principles can be used within the Sukuk market. The third emerging theme includes reporting and disclosure, and this links very closely with the work around education and awareness about standardized frameworks for issuers to make investors aware about their sustainability strategies and the underlying link to the assets which generate the returns within the Sukuk structure, and the link to how it matches with the SDGs, the UN SDGs, or pursuing goals which are in line with green, social, and sustainable investments. And finally, the last emerging theme is looking at the future, whether issues like embedded carbon credits or nature-based finance can be pursued within a Sukuk structure, whether certain thematic structures like social or blue can be pursued within a global Sukuk program, which is underpinned by a sustainability framework as well. So it's been very positive discussion so far, which is leading up to a report which the group is working on, which, as I said, aims to be delivered by the next COP. And the idea, as Omar said, as of the establishment of the high-level working group, is ensuring that this is highlighted in the next 3 COPs. And it's a privilege for us that the next two COPs are in Egypt and in the UAE, two leading regions for Sukuk issuance within the Islamic world. It's also fantastic to have the support of the Republic of Indonesia, which has led the issuance of green Sukuk globally, including an issuance that they came towards the end of May. So Omar, I'll pause over here and hand back to you and for Hitesh to talk about the issuer perspective. But hopefully that gives a good summary of the discussions at the technical working group so far.
Thank you very much, Shrey. It's been great to have London Stock Exchange Group show their commitment to this sector as a leading jurisdiction for listing green bonds and sustainable bonds, full stop, in the conventional space. That experience, that depth of knowledge can really help the Islamic finance sector as well, focus in this area. So thank you very much, Shrey, and in particular thanks, conscious you're on leave as well. You've made time to join us, so much appreciated for that. If I can ask Hitesh Asapota to also share his perspectives. He's the managing director who leads at Emirates NBD on loan syndication. Hitesh, over to yourself.
Thank you, Omar. It's been a good day, everyone. A very informative session so far. So it's a pleasure to be speaking here today. I've had the opportunity to work on Sukuk issuances since 2005. So it's a space that's very close to our hearts here. And in the recent past, what we've seen is also a significant interest from issuers to invest and issue in green and sustainable formats. And we've had the opportunity to work on various different issuances, from green to social to sustainable, transition, and even blue bonds. And in Sukuk format in particular, I think we've, in addition to the great work done by Islamic Development Bank and the Republic of Indonesia, we've seen ESG issuances from banks like Saudi National Bank, Kuwait Turk, and corporates such as Saudi Electricity and Etihad and MAF. But there's much more that needs to be done. I think, as Shrey pointed out, as a percentage of number of issuances that happen in the Sukuk space, green and ESG Sukuk issuances are still not that many. And after, obviously post various conversations we have with issuers, there are a few aspects that we've identified as key issuer considerations. One, for green in particular, is obviously identification of available green assets and the use of proceeds. That's been restrictive for certain issuers, including one we worked on in the recent past that had a cap of the issue size they could contemplate when they're doing a green issuance. The other aspect that's very important for capital markets is speed of execution, and the additional kind of work streams that come into play for some, especially in volatile times like this, it's not ideal to kind of spend additional time in structuring, a format in green or ESG. Additional costs are, obviously one of the other considerations that issuers look like very closely. What is an advantage though, however, which most issuers speak of nowadays is their ability to have a certain positioning and profile, which is increasingly important to issuers. I think it's interesting to point out that today, it's kind of optional for issuers to look at issuing in green or ESG formats. At some point, it could very well be, close to mandatory. So I think it's important that a lot of issuers are understanding and want to move in that space, a bit quicker than they would have otherwise. A couple of other considerations: investor diversity, and for Middle Eastern issuers, we haven't seen as much investor diversity come in if they issue in green or ESG format, or very minimal diversity yet. I think that will grow as more and more funds who focus on other regions as well allocate a larger percentage of their investment mandates to ESG only issuances. We spoke about greenium in a couple of panels earlier. I think pricing advantage at the moment is relatively minimal, but again, if it starts to give access to more investors, I expect that to change for issuers from this part of the world as well. And then I think the last thing I'd point out is it is not necessarily the right format for debut Sukuk issuers, because there is already a steep learning curve in being able to issue in Sukuk format. And then when you add to that the additional work streams that come into play for them to issue in green or ESG, it is not something that most issuers can manage within a certain time frame, right? So I think what we will see as the number of Sukuk issuers itself grows, you will see as probably a second or a third issuance, most of them have come back to us asking for the ability to be able to issue in green or ESG format. But overall, we remain extremely positive. I think we're just starting off with regards to where we are today, and I think the future looks bright for more Sukuk issuances and definitely more Sukuk issuances in green or ESG formats.
Thank you very much, Hitesh, for sharing your insights there. I think that's very much in line with what we're seeing at the UK IFC. There's a great opportunity going forward, notwithstanding the market dislocations earlier this year due to the geopolitical challenges. But we see $30 to $50 billion as the opportunity over the coming years, and we not just see it as a commercial opportunity, but we also see it as an imperative should we, as a global community, wish to achieve the SDGs, and indeed as the next frontier for Islamic finance as an industry, which can begin to incorporate the spirit of the law along with the letter of the law and really take on and be a leader in the global ESG space. We know trillions of dollars of capital are allocated in this area using PRI as a benchmark for that, or other metrics. So thank you very much once again, Hitesh and Shrey, and Russell, I'll hand back over to yourself.
Thank you for that. Really interesting to hear those different perspectives, and certainly I'm looking forward to following the work of the high level working group over the coming months. So we're getting close to the end of the session, but I do think now that Nick has managed to get back on from the UK HMT. Nick, are you there?
And indeed, and huge apologies for what happened there. Some bad IT issues on our side, so I got kicked out. But I don't know, Russell, I don't know if it's worth picking up the presentation again or just having a quick Q&A. I don't know, whatever works for you.
Yeah, I mean, given sort of we're a few minutes away from moving to closing, and perhaps don't go into your presentation. I think you'd almost finished it. I mean, I've got the question we have got to ask you was around what were the challenges that you faced in establishing the Green Finance Programme for the UK?
Yeah, and I think a lot of this really does touch on really interesting in hearing the Indonesian experience, because there's a lot of similarities in terms of the challenges. I think first and foremost, and we talk to a lot of sovereigns and other issuers about the process from to really launch a program. And I think one of the key things I always say, and it always surprised me, the difficulties here, was establishing the necessary contacts across government, the infrastructure, because ordinarily, certainly for us in the UK, my team that issue government debt and raise financing for the government ordinarily has no reason to be talking to the Environment Department or the Transport Department, or even colleagues in other parts of the Treasury that lead on climate, for example. Whereas setting up a green financing program has required us to build those interlinkages and that sort of cross-government infrastructure to deliver this program. So I think I wouldn't underestimate the importance of, before embarking on this sort of program, identifying who across government and beyond government needs to be involved and making sure they are involved from the start, because it will save a lot of problems down the line. I also wouldn't underestimate the resource required to set up the project and embed it across government, particularly on the reporting. This is a long-term program that requires buy-in across government and resource across government. And I think, as Indonesian colleagues mentioned, that I don't think you should underestimate that either. It is resource intensive compared to conventional financing. And this touches on another point, this idea of how to incentivize other actors to sort of support the program. We did have a few departments saying to us, well, why do you need this from us? You're asking us for more work. So I think coming up with incentive structures so that there is buy-in from all the key actors across government is another really important thing to think about. For example, telling departments, why it's important that they improve their impact reporting and evaluation of their programs, sort of the wider benefits of doing that. I'd also say the importance of external advice. So we got fantastic input from our structured advisors, HSBC and JP Morgan, but also the green finance community, ICMA, our colleagues at the LSE, the Climate Bonds Initiative, and so on. And I think another sort of, I would say not a challenge, but a really important aspect of setting up a green financing program, I think, is leveraging all that expert advice that exists in the private sector, among NGOs, among others, because I think our program was better for it. The innovations that we introduced, such as the retail product, such as the commitment to reporting on social co-benefits, so not just the environmental benefits of our program, but also the social benefits of the expenditures we finance, such as job creation, socio-economic advancement, access to infrastructure, and so on. A lot of those innovations, those ideas were sort of catalyzed by conversations we had with outside experts and stakeholders. So that's, I think, another key message, that whenever we talk to other sovereigns considering entering this space, is something we really encourage them to do. And some of the sort of most enjoyable parts of doing a green financing program has been talking to other sovereigns, sort of understand their perspectives and their unique challenges, and working through them together. So yeah, I'll stop there. But yeah, it's a few challenges and enjoyments from the program.
But thanks, Nick. That's really helpful. And I think you've highlighted one of the key aspects around, green finance program. Looking to use a sovereign issuance to support, green infrastructure, for want of a better phrase, in a country. And that's the importance to have, both the team who are the originator of the finance, so the people who are actually going to get the money through the door, with the departments and the program that actually going to, where that money is going to be spent. I mean, that's not an issue just for a sovereign issuance, or any kind of green bond, that kind of issuance. They need to have this connection between the finance teams, who are the one who are getting the money through the door, and then having all the internal processes to ensure that money can be spent on the projects and activities for which it has been raised. And so that's really important, to bring together all those different aspects of the organisation doing that issuance. There has been one question, and I don't know whether you can answer this one, Nick, but it's around, I mean, does the UK government provide any specific support to issuers? I mean, they've asked a question around issuers of green Sukuk, but I mean, I'm just interested in whether there is any programs in the UK that support, say, organisations that want to issue a Sukuk or a green Sukuk.
So, and colleagues on the line, Rob and others, may have some ideas, some views on the Sukuk side specifically. I mean, what I would say is, we certainly on the green side, we work very closely with a range of stakeholders to basically trying to make the UK a really hospitable place to raise green ESG financing, whether that's a green Sukuk, a green bond, or another form of ESG financing. You may have seen the FCA, our Financial Conduct Authority, our regulator, recently put out a position paper exploring some of the steps that it wants to take, working with us at the Treasury, to make the UK green bond market a more fruitful place to issue. So talking about, is there scope for regulating ESG data providers to ensure the quality of ESG data is robust? Is there scope for regulating the second party opinion market, so that there's real confidence in the opinions of those SPO providers? Also talking, there's some conversations, and there's no position taken on this yet, but whether there's a role for a sort of a UK green bond standard akin to the EU's green bond standard, again, to sort of set out the sort of key parameters of to ensure there's sort of like a level playing field, and investors can have confidence in the products that are being issued in the UK. So there's a lot on that side. We also do a lot of external engagement, as I say, working with colleagues like the LSE, the finance community, to I think to ensure there's sort of a common understanding of the expectations in the green bond market in the UK, particularly things like reporting. So we feed into the ICMA kind of bonds initiative and others do on reporting. So I think there's a few things we do there, both sort of softer outreach, but also working with the regulator and things to try and make this illicit sector as robust as possible, and give investors, issuers, consumers, everyone real confidence that this is a transparent market. And I think the buzzword is greenwashing, but that's something that I think the government, regulators, and other stakeholders are really keen to guard against in the UK context. And I think that will be supportive of future issuances if we can achieve that.
Thanks, Nick. That's been really helpful. We are now going to have to move relatively swiftly to the closing of this session, but I did want to just thank all of the speakers, Nick and the team from the UK, and the other speakers across Indonesia, Ministry of Finance, and others who've provided those really useful inputs this afternoon. I've certainly learned a lot. I hope you have in the audience. I hope it's stimulated lots of thinking from yourselves. And we will now thank all of them and pass back to the MC to formally close this afternoon's session.
Thank you, Russell. What a fruitful discussion we had today, ladies and gentlemen. And now to conclude this seminar officially, I'd like to invite Mrs. Nella Hendriepi, Director of Center for Regional and Bilateral Policy, Minister of Finance of the Republic of Indonesia. Ibu Nella, you may have the screen.
Can you see me now? Okay. Thank you, Pak Nopri. Good morning, good afternoon, Ibu Dwi Irianti, Mr. Rob Ward, Deputy Director International Financial Service, HM Treasury, distinguished speakers, participants, ladies and gentlemen. I heard that the participant coming from many different time zones, so I appreciate you staying until the end. So thank you for attending this G20 side event focused on opportunities and challenge in green sukuk. We can see that this event was a joint effort from many stakeholders, including Indonesia Ministry of Finance, HM Treasury, the Islamic Development Bank, and UK Islamic Finance Council. This event is part of the follow-up from the Green Sukuk High-Level Working Group, which was launched at the COP26 by our Minister Ibu Sri Mulyani and HM Treasury Minister John Glenn. So from this event, we have learned that there are still some challenges in green sukuk, such as the public awareness of this new and innovative financial product, the need for a level playing field between green sukuk and conventional finance, but the opportunities are also huge. The global sukuk market grew exponentially from 85 billion US dollar in 2016 to 172 billion US dollar in 2020. Green Sukuk combines both climate and social components, so it supports both the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals and as well as the financing to achieve National Determined Contribution or NDC targets. Indonesia has shown leadership through issuance of the world's first sovereign green sukuk and the world's first retail green sukuk. To ensure the projects are green, Indonesia developed and implemented the climate budget tagging system, so the fund raised can be directly used for green activities. The Green Sukuk instrument has raised over 3.9 billion US dollar to finance the government's green project and at the same time strengthen the country's position in the global Sharia financial market. Ladies and gentlemen, finally, I would like to thank our distinguished speakers who shared their valuable experience at the webinar, all the presenters and all parties who have contributed their best effort and assistance in organizing the events and ensuring the success of it. I do hope that this webinar is able to impact all of us to greatly foster and empower the development of the Green Sukuk. And through Indonesia G20 presidency this year, we hope to see more and more countries to also issue Green Sukuk. Please keep in mind that we still have various events during this Indonesia G20 presidency. Please check our website and enjoy the rest of the year of the presidency. To conclude, thank you for the great contribution and looking forward to seeing you in many of Indonesia G20 set event this year. for all stakeholder and my team, DJPPR team, HM Treasury, Islamic Development Bank, and for everyone that I cannot mention one by one. Thank you very much for your hard work. Thank you. Back to the model.
Thank you very much, Ibu Nela. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our seminar today. On behalf of the working committee, I'd like to thank you for your attention and active participation during the seminar today. We also would like to thank all the speakers and moderators for enlightening us with a thought-provoking and intriguing discussion. I'm signing out. See you again another time. Stay well and stay safe. Good afternoon.
Thank you.